Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing The Clothes They Stood Up In. We saw this touring production at Nottingham Playhouse on the 12th of September 2022. Adrian Scarborough's adaptation brings Bennett's hilarious story to the stage for the first time, capturing his trademark observational wit in this gentle and darkly surprising tale. So Richard, what's it all about?
A night at the opera ends with a shock for a mild-mannered couple, Maurice and Rosemary Ransom, when they open their front door to discover their flat completely empty. From light bulbs to carpets to toilet paper, even their chicken casserole has been stolen. The Ransoms turn detective to try and work out who's behind this outrageous act and why and how they did it. Along the way, they are forced to examine their lives when stripped bare of the worldly possessions that define us all. Should they rebuild their old life or begin afresh?
But first, our post-show opinion!
Thoroughly enjoyable.
Great performance, great actors.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Right, okay. So, Richard, we went to see this. Although we went to see the same show, we was in different seats.
Yes,
Not that
we
that
were.
matters. But I was to stage... No, I was just on the right. The auditorium right.
Yeah,
Rather than the stage left. And you were sort of... You had the front row seats, didn't you?
I was front row. Yeah, so
Yeah.
very fortunate.
Was it... It was your mum, wasn't it?
Yeah,
on
it was
this
with my
one?
mum.
Yeah.
I went to see him with my mum.
Okay. So, would you like to then set the scene for us and just describe what we saw when curtains opened?
I suppose to start with, basically you walked into the auditorium and the curtains were shut, so we're going back to old style, very traditional theatre, which a lot of productions way back when used to start with curtains shut, so they didn't used to present the stage or anything like that, because we've had a lot of stage and shows recently where you see everything at once.
Yeah.
And I think there's almost like a harking back in a few productions we've seen recently where we're going back to the almost layered chocolate box of theatre where you're taking one layer off and you're seeing a little bit more and you're seeing a little bit more. So this is very much what The Clothes They Stood Up was about. The curtains opened and you had a black stage and just two opera chairs on stage.
As if they were
they're
seeing a show. Weren't they? Yeah.
But it was done in such a way that you really didn't know what else was going to happen on stage apart from that focus. So you knew it was going to end up in different places, but you really didn't know what set to expect until production progressed, really.
And they held back on showing what they had to offer us.
Yeah, I think that was key to this as well. I think it worked really well.
So the first little bit of scene with them at the opera, and then they got kicked out of the opera, didn't they?
Yeah, they left the opera and got the bus home.
Which was another couple of seats on the other side of the stage.
Yeah, so you had two bus seats after the opera seats. So it was cleverly done where they used another area of the black stage just to show that they were sat on a bus going home.
Yep. And then it built up to us seeing the dramatic...
It's a dramatic entrance, really, of the house itself.
Yeah, yes.
Because what you were shown was the back black tabs went up, and there was a huge flat basically that was movable, so it actually came towards you on the stage. So
yeah, it was raised up off the original stage, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was like a set on a forklift truck being like pushed in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really did feel like that.
So it was very an affluent house, very was it sort of Georgian in style? The decorations, like the wallpaper and the architrave and fixtures and fittings.
Yeah, it was very
nice.
It was one of those that, it wasn't a modern day flat. It was definitely
very
a flat
high
that's
end.
been high-end flat in London where you expected that feel where most people lived in flats, but these aren't flats that you'd consider small, or they were still grand in their own.
Well, yeah, so high earners for professional people. Only it was a bare set. Because everything had been stolen.
Yeah.
All they had was the clothes they stood up.
And one thing I'd say is, one of the little touches I liked was all the dust marks around the pictures and the picture frames and the things that were meant to be there. It wasn't just wallpaper and things missing.
Yeah.
They'd spent time, the set dressers, to actually make sure that it felt like things had been removed. but they'd been there a long time, so you knew where they were placed.
Yeah, when I moved into my house, all the pictures, what I saw on the walk around, when they took all them back, there was like marks everywhere of where things used to be. So it was similar to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really worked really well, I thought. And I suppose the first few scenes happened in that room where there was barely anything.
Yeah, and the comedy derived from the fact that it took them back by surprise because they took literally everything, even down to the utensils, the oven, just everything.
The sockets on the wall, the light fittings.
Exactly.
Everything
So
that you
it's like,
could see was gone.
Oh, I'll get my phone. Oh, no, it was on the cabinet. Oh no, that's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't. Even the toilet paper and everything.
If they could have took the door in the frame, they would.
Yeah, it was just the farce about them having nothing in there, which is brilliant from start to finish.
Yeah, you almost thought I've walked into the wrong flat. Have I got the wrong number?
And just the astonishments in their faces of just being surprised and flabbergasted as to where is everything?
Exactly. Yeah, total loss.
What would you do in that situation?
Just be crazy. I mean.
Well, that you'd call the police, like what they did, and
although they couldn't call the police because even the phone had been stolen.
Which led us to the next scene because we had to go to the laundrette.
Yeah, definitely.
Which introduced another character, and so on and so forth.
I suppose one thing we could say about the set is it moved from the house, then the house disappeared, to set pieces being brought in front of the stage to actually show different areas of the world that they were living in. So the laundrette was really just 2 washing machines, a phone, and a bench. But it was because it was a black stage. The rest was up to the audience's imagination, really. Same as the corner shop. That was just the counter with all the things and the call centre girl, and all of those things were enough to just take you to those different places, and I think that helped.
Do you think the reason why their house set was up on like a platform, even though you couldn't really see under it, do you think that came in because it was representing a flat?
Yes, it gave you that idea that it was higher up than the staged area, so there was almost a down below where people walked around the streets, and then there was an up above.
Yeah, because it didn't occur to me till just now.
No, and that makes sense in the way they did it. I think as well, it was confident, and they made it imposing, so it almost felt big on stage, and I think that was key to make it worked really well. And
as the play progressed, we realised later on, through them having help with not necessarily the police, but the all the other characters that become involved, that they locate where their furniture is, and it ends up being all together, but somewhere else entirely, which is the lead up to the interval. Yeah,
it ends up being they find it in a storage facility,
all laid out how it should be.
How it should be in a corrugated steel storage facility, and I think it was really clever because it was the set then again was a complete mirror image of what you'd seen in the house.
Yeah.
Again, made in the same space in the same place, and I think that was really clever as well because it just made it the comedy that was there. Everything was just funny. It just worked really well.
Yeah, I mean this is adapted from an Alan Bennett play, which we've said.
It's actually a short story, isn't it?
Yeah, not a play. Sorry, by Adrian Scarborough. It'd be quite nice to read that play, that short story.
Yes, definitely. Just to see how much the adaptation.
Yeah, was. where it's coming from. But before we carry on any further, what do you reckon about the direction on this piece? Because it was directed by Adam Penfold.
Well, I think director-wise it was done really well. I thought that they nailed the pace because there's only a small cast. It's a cast of 5 people. And I just thought they did really well in keeping the momentum of the production going, and all the extra characters helped drive the story along. And I don't think they ever really let up, and I think it's one of those productions that you either commit to or you don't commit to it. As an actor, it's because it's comedy, because it's got to be funny. You've got to really be in the zone in this type of production.
Would you say that like professional actors wouldn't commit to a play?
Yeah, I would. I think sometimes they'd probably commit to it when it comes to actually before the rehearsals and things like that. But then when they get into it, they don't understand that you've got to fully understand the role inside out, upside down, and I think the director can only work with so much.
Right. Yeah, I think I know where you're going now. So they were all on board.
They're all committed, or
Yeah,
needed
yeah.
committing.
I don't know. Maybe we need committing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I guess for me, it felt like it would have been an easy thing to direct.
Yes.
Simply because you had professionals that are probably well known in the theatre world as well, like Adrian and Sophie, who would take less effort to direct, maybe.
Yeah, I know
because
what you mean.
they'd know their character and they'd know how to move across the stage, what their character would want or need from a scene.
They've already got that confidence of performance, so they don't have to work on that. They just have to work on the production as a whole in some ways.
Yeah, and there's not one bit of this show where I thought there was like a wrong move or something that looked off.
No, and I didn't even feel like there was overacting, or there was no level of like they were the characters and they played the people in it, and I think that's
but in terms of like directing, it was a brilliant piece of direction.
Definitely, totally. I mean, it was very definite on all the scenes. You knew.
Yeah. And the scene changes as well.
The scene changes, exactly. You knew all the scenes and settings and changes, and the cast must have been directed in a way that they knew what was coming next, and they were there. They were in the places they needed to be. You could tell the blocking had been done really well.
Yeah,
where they all knew where they were moving or where they were going next, but
nothing
nothing felt unnatural though. I think that was the thing. It wasn't just like you could tell somebody had been told to go and stand over there or go and stand over there. You didn't feel that. You just felt like they were living out there.
Yeah, because we've seen a few shows which looked very much like obvious blocking, shall we say?
Yeah.
Whereas this looked more professional and a lived experience in terms of the people in their world on the stage.
Yeah. It did feel like that. It felt a lot more like
also it's a farce.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was a lot of brilliant comic timing by all of them, and
and the thing is with a farce, every movement and every word matters, and it's got to be delivered, and that it loses it if you're off mark almost.
So with this being adapted by Adrian Scarborough, what are your thoughts on the writing?
I thought it was, because I haven't read the novella, so I haven't read the actual short story, so I don't know how different this is to the actual production. And you know what? I thought as a new farce, as it were, based on an old novella, I think it was written well. I think it was funny, and it had a lot of funny moments. I mean, some people could look at it and think it was aged in a way because it was very traditional farce.
I think for me, the whole production was executed brilliantly.
Yeah.
The first act, as we've already discussed with the whole setup of the stage, it introduced elements bit by bit, which was great for setting the scene. And then each scene, there was a reason why they were there. What I'm trying to say is, for the first act, there was a great structure there. It worked.
Yeah,
everything
really
worked.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm sort of breaking this down, because I think the second act went off a little bit. But the first act, with the whole finding out where things were and setting up the character, setting up the farce, and how these characters interplayed, it worked really well and it was thoroughly enjoyable. And then the interval where they discovered where their home basically was.
Their entire life.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, really good.
So I can't really fault that. There were moments, in the second act, I think in Act 2, where it lost a couple of its wheels and began to slide downhill a little bit for me, was because things just ended up feeling like they were tagged on. So the whole reason as to why or who took all their stuff ended up being explained in one scene by a neighbour of the flat. And that just felt like being tagged on because we hadn't seen this character from the beginning.
No.
It was just set in afterwards to basically explain everything and to give a reason why it was done in the first place.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then the demise of the character. Now, I don't know if it happened in the book, in the short story. It probably would have done.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that sort of worked in a farce, a death in a farce, because it's comedy. I'm not quite sure if that worked right. It just felt a little like we've gone through Act 1 being really funny and the characters worked well, but then it changing pace a little bit, being about Mrs. Ransom
Yeah.
and her going off for a new life.
It's almost her freedom.
Yeah, which is all very well, but the sort of setup needs to be sort of installed at the very beginning. And then we had a bit of dialogue in the shop in Act 1 about finding this particular person, but it just felt like it was struggling to find a subplot.
Yeah.
In a way. But maybe that's down to it being a short story and not being fully fleshed out.
Yeah, true. You're filling in the lines when actually there's no lines to fill in, sort of thing.
Yeah, and having that backstory. So the needs of that character and for her to have this change, it felt like it was missing another element there.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
And some of the scenes with Mr. Anwar, the shopkeeper, just seemed a little long-winded. Although, when you were talking about, is this a play which is out of date, they did update it with the whole TikTok, Facebook references and stuff like that.
But that's sometimes what I mean is when I say dated, I mean dated in the structure of a farce or the way that something had been written quite a while ago. You can throw iPads and things into the mix, but that doesn't necessarily update the structure of a production, and I think that's what I mean by the traditional sense of, Oh,
right. Well, some of the scenes just seem to go on slightly longer, but for no apparent need. There was no
there
need
wasn't
for
strength in that almost little mini storyline. There wasn't enough.
Yeah, I think for you needed.
It was a passing comment rather.
I think it was also the fact that you probably needed a couple of subplots to keep it tied together and keep it moving along. The ending, it did what it did. It tied everything up and put a nice bow on the top of it. But it was as if the second part of it was a little. It missed certain elements to the reason.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Suppose.
Yeah, it was almost like a fast forward. The second half a little bit. It was because it seemed to go a bit quick.
Yeah, because once Mr. Ransom has disappeared. And she's discovered her new lease of life because maybe he's been holding her back.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it went downhill because we were just left with Sophie Thompson, Mrs. Ransom there. Because she was, the pair of them, they were extremely strong actors and they were just brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think it sort of lacked a little bit more interplay between them. And
in the writing.
And all the bits about that, the hidden photographs that was going on and the thing on the tape, that sort of like just... mellowed out a little bit.
Yeah, disappeared a little, doesn't it?
Dissipated. Yeah, and I think that's just probably down to the context of maybe the short story, I think, Because what Adrian Scarborough had written, or what Adrian Scarborough had wrote, was a great introduction to a farce, a comedy farce.
Yeah, definitely.
But it did feel a little neglected in having stuff like tagged on at the end to wrap things up.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it felt like you fast. Yeah,
I'm not quite sure how to land this plane. This will go on here.
Yeah, put this bit on, put that bit on.
Explain that. Whereas maybe I think perhaps if we'd have seen or had reference of the neighbour whilst in the first act, for example, like them asking, or he pops down and says, "Oh, you."
Or even to acknowledge that I've knocked on the door and nobody's answering, or I've not seen him yet, or even if it was just something on those lines.
Yeah, if they'd have gone to see if he'd have seen anybody coming and going out of their flat or something.
Because there's other flats in that building and not just one, and I think that they could have maybe, even if they'd had that moment in there, that would have helped gel that together a little bit more.
Yeah, it's making it not feel tagged on at the end as well.
Yeah, it's building you up rather than sort of, it's like, what's this?
Yeah, but that's my only gripe, and I think that's just down on the script. The set, the acting, the directing, the whole piece of it was just brilliant.
Totally.
So, moving on now. I think we're
here for the drama.
Now, as we've been talking about the cast,
what
do you want to say?
Well, I just want to say how talented the five of them were, really. And I couldn't really pick one of them out because I thought they were all on the game. I think they all, Sophie, Adrian, Ned, Charlie and Natasha, who were all involved in this, they didn't really stop at all in the production. They were all...
They looked like they had so much fun.
Oh, yeah, so much fun. But the amount of characters that the three other ensemble performers did. They were committed to every role they did, and they were very good at shape-shifting. They were very good at becoming those different characters, and I think that was key to this working.
Yes.
Because for Natasha McGeehee to go from a lady working in
Laundrette.
in a lady in a laundrette to then being a call centre lady to then being a carer and counsellor, and but each character felt different. It almost made you double take that it was the same person.
Oh yeah,
there was moments where you were like, "Is this the same person?" Because she's just completely different.
And same goes for like Ned Costello as well.
Oh, totally.
Because he, you wouldn't have expected him to have been this hunky sort of American in the flat.
No,
when he comes out looking like a bit of a chavener layabout who's stolen the stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But he starts off as this quiet, know-it-all sort of police person who
an
knows
apprentice
about
policeman, really.
Shakespeare.
And it's like, it's just crazy, So I think that it really showed the levels of acting that, I mean, it was a great portfolio for them, because to show what they can perform in that small space of time, really, it was great.
Yeah, and I prefer those kind of plays where you've got the main characters, but the rest are ensemble players.
Definitely,
really.
Yeah.
I'm finding it difficult to have a shout out because I want to sort of like shout them all out. I think they're all brilliant. So it's I won't do one because I think they gave strong performances throughout. They kept the energy high.
Definitely.
There was like a lot of subtle moments from Sophie, giving all the delicacies and just being in character, and just it was just I can't explain it, but there was like a delicacy to her voice.
Yeah.
About her being sort of like trapped between a rock and a hard place, and being
definitely.
like controlled in a way. And Adrian just gave a strong performance.
I think this is a production where you straight away see the professionalism in professional actors that know how to tread those boards well, and I think that's the key thing in this production. What
would you like to say about the costume and props?
Well, I think everything was spot on. I think they did a really good job of, I don't think anything was out of place, and they didn't really have any extra props that weren't necessary. And, for example, when they set up the actual scene where the house had been moved to a storage container, it felt an exact identical replica of what they were living in.
Yeah.
And I think that was key to make it ramped the comedy up really at the end of the first act because of that. And it was cleverly done, but I just think it just really set that tone for how strong the props were, because even in the second half when they swapped the props to the real house, they must have had so many duplicates of some of these props things so that they didn't have to keep chopping and changing everything, that it worked really well.
Do you think they had one set, or do you think they had two sets?
There was two sets.
I was wondering that, one empty and then one full.
Yeah, well, no, there was two sets, as in one was when I say two sets, I mean there was two sets as in the shipping container, and the other set had everything put back on the walls, so they did fix everything back because it was the same set that they used. It was just the shipping container walls went up into the fly tower, so that they dropped that in when they needed it, so they only had to do set change on one of them.
Now moving on to our next segment, when we say,
what the tech is this?
So Richard, when we talk about the technical aspects of everything, was there anything that went wrong, or the lighting and the sound? Was there anything
I don't think
noticeable?
Lighting wise, I think it was all very general cover. There wasn't really anything that was.
Well, they had one light on in the hallway, which was just a bulb.
Yeah,
because everything else had been taken.
Yeah, exactly. But the actual lighting, technical side of it, there wasn't really anything lighting wise that was spectacular in a way, because it was all sort of very white lights and focus lights on certain areas. Sound wise, there wasn't really a lot of sound effects either. It was all done almost on stage, apart from the tape that was played and the little bit of background for the telly being on and stuff like that. But other than that, really, a lot of it was done where it was just using the items on stage, really.
Yeah, I can't think that anything went wrong.
I don't think anything went wrong that I
saw.
Good. There was not anything that got in the way. There was no faux pas, shall we say. But I think that's down to the cast just being on it. They just really didn't. You wouldn't have even noticed, to be fair. I think that was the key thing. There was, even to the point of, because there's quite a lot of technical stuff in this set, because as I mentioned earlier, the walls of the shipping container set were literally sent up into the fly tower, and they were dropped in at certain points. Just
when you say shipping container, do you mean like it was a warehouse or corrugated?
Yeah, the corrugated walls, because they were putting it in like warehouse storage. But that was winched up into the ceiling and only dropped in when it's needed, and it would have gone in front of the original set, so it blocked out that. But then they put the items on stage that when they dropped that in, the tables and the chairs and stuff were on the stage. Yeah, and then it was just clever, because they must have then worked on the set behind it to actually put the original items back in the...
Yeah, because they had a moment, it was a very quick moment to put everything on there.
Yes.
Which is kind of why I wondered, did they have an empty set and then a full set?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to say they've got the room at the back on the wing space, they haven't actually got that much wing space.
No, it's simply because it was a small set.
Yeah, it was.
That's why I just wondered if it was there was two of them, to be honest. Yeah. So, before we go to our scores, Richard, this is a new thing that we do now.
Yeah.
Replay. Which moment would you replay? Mind you, you're going to see it again, so...
Well, yeah, we're going to see it again.
Apart from all of it,
I'm just replaying the lot. Yeah. I think it's got to be the moment that the couple walk into the shipping container, the warehouse, and see everything put in exactly the same location and place, and everything's there, and it's just that.
It's the ultimate reveal, isn't it? Yeah. That's the thing I'd replay.
That's the bit that gets me every time. It got me. It was brilliant.
Because
I didn't expect it to be at that level.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was going until that was shown, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, I'd go for that as well. Now then, Richard, scores and doors for this production. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a lavish night out with Dame Kiri to Kanawa, and 1 being the clothes they shouldn't have stood up in, what are you going to give this?
Well, I give this an 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought commitment to the production by the cast and the versatility of the cast, really, I thought, compared to other productions that we've seen that have been new productions, this was by far so much better than other ones. And I think that says it all for me, so 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9, I think.
Oh.
I loved it. I'd definitely see it again, and I'll urge other people to see it. This was
totally
a brilliant...
Agree.
You can't go wrong with a Nottingham Playhouse production, simply because they put so much effort and detail into everything that I've not really disliked a lot of their stuff.
No.
And this is beautiful and wonderful. It's just great. Now, the only thing I have a little bit of a point off is because of the disjointedness in Act 2, and that's down to probably the script and the structure of it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just felt a little bit off and a bit hastily tagged on. But other than that, it was a blooming good production.
Definitely.
All the way through it.
Definitely.
Cast, production, set, direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Stephen may have mentioned, I am going to see it again because I did enjoy it. And
I can't afford to see it again.
And I think it's got to be one of those productions that you need to see it. It's worth it, and it's a great night out, because I think that's the key thing.
Funny.
Sometimes life's too difficult at the moment. Just get out there and go and see it.
Yeah. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck, tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be? Richard, what are you going to give it?
It can only be a standing ovation because it deserves it. I mean, I think it shocked me more when the 5 of them walked out at the end and you realise there's only been 5 people on stage doing this. And I've seen productions with 10, 15 people and they've not been anywhere near as good. And I think that says it all to me. So yeah, standing ovation.
I gave it a standing ovation as well. Blooming brilliant. It really was. And I had to stand up anyway just to get away from the person who sat next to me who stunk to high hell. Oh my God.
Get some deodorant.
So there we are. That's our discussion of the clothes they stood up in. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing Shawshank Redemption
Mrs. Doubtfire,
and the Book of Mormon. That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.